Hey guys, so today I'm going to do a torn hand tutorial. So to start off, you're going to want to cover your hand in your choice of adhesive. I'm using Prozaid, but spirit gum or liquid latex should work just as well. After you've coated the area, you're going to want to let it dry until the Prozaid is completely clear. This should only take a couple of minutes. Next, you're going to want to get something that you can use for bones or tendons. You want to cut them to the desired size and press them on firmly to the Prozaid. For mine, I used a cotton tip, cut in half long ways, then rolled up in a tissue. You'll want to get some skull wax and Vaseline. A handy hint when using skull wax is to always have Vaseline nearby, just to coat your tools in, as it stops the skull wax from sticking to them. You'll want to apply the wax to any spots in between the cotton tips, just to really add a meaty texture to later. Also cover the ends of the cotton tips so they look like they're coming out of the skin and just makes it all look a little bit more natural. To create the torn skin, you'll just want to flatten out some skull wax and just lay it over the edge of the wound. Just make sure you don't cover up too much of the area. Before you completely cover the wound with skin, you'll want to add some meaty texture to the wax in between the cotton tips. It is much easier to do this before the wound is completely surrounded with skin. I just used the back of one of my sculpting tools and a stipple sponge. However, if you don't have these, I'm sure a cotton tip would work just as well. You will also want to cover bits and pieces of the bones with wax. This is just to make it look like they're still partially under the flesh, just to make it look that little bit more real. Now it's time to add the rest of the skin. I recommend adding all the texture you want to the meaty inside part of the wound at the moment before you completely cover it in skin, just because it is much easier to do it and you're less likely to damage the skin around the wound if you do it beforehand. Now that you've added the rest of the skin, it's time to blend the wax into the skin as well as you can. You really want to try and get as smooth as you possibly can, just so you can't see the transition from skin to wax. Once you're happy with the blending, it's time to create texture on the wax to make it look like skin. I do so with a stipple sponge, but you could also do it with a brush if you don't have one. Afterwards, I just gently tap on the wax to soften any sharp scratches. Once you're happy with how the wound looks, it's time to colour the wound. I started with the lighter skin colour in my European Body Arts palette, just to give the bones some colour. Next, I'm going to use the pink to give some depth to the meaty area, but don't worry about that too much, as we're going to be covering it in blood later. Now for me, trying to match the skin colour to your own is probably the hardest part out of this whole tutorial, because if it doesn't work, the look just isn't going to be complete. So it might be a wise idea, if you haven't done this before, just to test it on another part of your skin, just so you can have a feel for how the paints actually work. So really just keep playing around with the colours until you get the ones closest to yours and until you're completely happy with it. For this first layer of blood, I'm using Ben Nye's Thick Blood. It gives the wound a darker colour and kind of adds some meaty chunks to it. However, if you don't have this, if you add a little bit of gelatin to regular fake blood, it kind of has the same effect. Next, you're going to want to cover the whole wound in fake blood. If you've put too much on there, just grab a tissue and get some of the excess blood off. You can then use that just to kind of smear it over the side of your hands, which it gives a really nice effect. finish off this look, just cover some small pieces of cotton wool in fake blood and place them on the wound. This really just gives a nice meaty texture to the wound. Well, there you are guys, that's the end product. I hope you enjoyed. If there's any other tutorials that you'd like to see me do, feel free to leave your suggestions in the comment section below.